The immensity of the ocean's midnight zone pressed upon the Nautilus with a weight that was both physical and psychological. Outside the meter-thick acrylic viewport, the universe was a liquid black, punctuated by the infrequent, ghostly drift of bioluminescent organisms painting ephemeral trails in the eternal darkness. Dr. Ethan Rourke, a man whose connection to the crushing abyss felt more profound than any tie to the sun-drenched surface world, monitored the humming console. His focus was absolute, honed by years spent deciphering the cryptic signals and sonar echoes from Earth's least known frontier. Miles above, the research vessel Odyssey served as his tether, a technological marvel floating on the interface between familiar air and the alien water world that consumed his waking thoughts and haunted his dreams. This dive, however, resonated with an energy distinct from the calculated exploration of previous missions. They were charting the abyssal plains flanking an unexplored segment of the mid-Atlantic ridge, that colossal submerged mountain range splitting the ocean floor, drawn by anomalous sensor readings that defied conventional oceanographic models. Something waited in the depths, something that warped localized temperature gradients and emitted electromagnetic pulses strong enough to make the Nautilus's sensitive instruments flutter erratically. Ethan. Confirm readings. Captain Eva Rostova's voice, usually a calm anchor, held a new tightness as it crackled through the submersible's internal comms. Surface sensors showed the thermal differential increasing exponentially as you approach the anomaly's perimeter, and the M field, it's generating harmonics we can't classify. Advise extreme caution. Maintain current. Distance. Ethan adjusted the Nautilus's powerful external spotlights, their beams slicing through the dense marine snow, struggling against the light-devouring quality of the water ahead. Acknowledged. Eva. Readings confirmed. Moving within 50 meters for visual confirmation. Water composition analysis returning. Inconclusive data. Trace elements outside known parameters, almost like the water itself is. Exotic. He leaned forward, his face nearly touching the cold viewport, eyes straining to pierce the gloom. It wasn't geology, not a wreck. It was an event, a structure composed not of matter, but of its absence. A perfectly cylindrical column of utter blackness rose from the abyssal muck, ascending into the unseen heights above, its boundaries unnervingly sharp against the slightly less black water surrounding it. The submersible's lights hit the boundary and simply vanished, absorbed without reflection. It was a hole in the ocean, a fluid void shimmering faintly at its edges where stray photons were caught and distorted before being swallowed. Within this impossible formation, the darkness writhed with a slow, viscous turbulence, hinting at colossal energies contained. Eva, Ethan breathed, his scientific detachment momentarily overwhelmed by primal awe. Visual contact. It's a pillar of black liquid, seems kilometers high, perfectly vertical, no diffusion at the boundary layer. It's like solidified night. We have telemetry confirmation. Ethan, Eva responded, her voice hushed. Incredible. Thermal shows a core temperature significantly colder than ambient, yet the M output suggests intense internal activity. What are you seeing inside? Ethan nudged the Nautilus incrementally closer, the hum of the thrusters seeming unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. He extended the manipulator arm, its tip equipped with a suite of delicate environmental sensors, towards the shimmering edge of the black column. The instant the sensors made contact, klaxons shrieked within the cockpit, red lights flashing. Retracting arm. Now, Ethan commanded, overriding the safety protocols as smoke curled faintly from the sensor housing. Severe material degradation. The alloy is pitting, almost dissolving on contact. That fluid isn't just water, Eva, it's something else. Aggressively reactive, he killed the alarms, the sudden silence amplifying his own heartbeat. His eyes scanned the impenetrable void within the column, searching for any variation, any clue, a flicker, deep inside. Not light, but movement, a disturbance in the uniform blackness. He cranked the gain on the external cameras to maximum, focusing the spotlights into laser-like beams aimed at the fleeting impression. Slowly, defying the light-annihilating properties of the column, a form resolved, pale, adrift. Suspended motionlessly within the strange, heavy liquid, a shape undeniably humanoid. Female, her silhouette was softly illuminated, not by his lights, but by a faint, intrinsic luminescence that seemed to emanate from her skin, or perhaps the fluid clinging to it. Long hair, like strands of captured moonlight, fanned out around a serene face. She hung in the water, apparently unconscious, caught in the column's slow, hypnotic gyre. Eva. Ethan's voice was sharp, cutting through the tension. Life form detected. Inside the column. Humanoid female. Repeat. There is a woman inside this structure. A beat of stunned silence from the Odyssey. Then Eva's voice, sharp with disbelief. Negative. Ethan. That's impossible. All biological models dictate instantaneous death under those conditions. Pressure, temperature, the corrosive fluid. It must be a sensor ghost, a matrix illusion caused by the M field. It's no illusion, Eva, Ethan insisted. His gaze fixed on the impossible sight. He zoomed the camera, straining to see detail. Was that breathing? The barest, slowest expansion and contraction of her ribcage. Yes, faint, but definitely present. She's alive. I can see respiration. Faint, but she's alive. I have to get her out. Belay that, Ethan. Eva's command was swift and absolute. That column is a Class 5 unknown. Entering it is suicide. The fluid compromised the sensor array in seconds. It could breach the sub's hull integrity. We don't know what that energy field will do. We pull back, observe, analyze. That's the protocol. Ethan's hands hovered over the controls. Protocol, logic, survival, all screamed retreat. Yet, the image of the woman, suspended, vulnerable, impossibly alive in that lethal fluid, overrode everything. It was a fundamental imperative, deeper than training, deeper than fear. He couldn't turn away. He couldn't leave her entombed in that liquid night. Eva, I can maneuver close enough. The manipulator arm has force field shielding for sample containment. I might be able to extract her without full subimmersion. I repeat, negative. Eva's tone was glacial. System analysis shows increasing energy fluctuations within the column. It's unstable. I am ordering you to disengage and return to the Odyssey immediately. Acknowledge. He hesitated. The crushing weight of the ocean, momentarily less than the weight of the decision. He looked at the woman, a fragile pearl in an oyster of deadly darkness. The risks were immense, potentially fatal. The rewards, unknown, perhaps non-existent beyond satisfying his own conscience. Forgive me, Key Captain, he whispered, flipping the main communication switch to internal record only, silencing the incoming transmission from the surface. Logging override. Pilot discretion invoked due to imminent threat to potential sentient life form. It was a flimsy justification, but it was the only one he had. Taking manual control, Ethan eased the Nautilus forward, gently nudging the blunt nose of the submersible across the shimmering boundary. The transition was jarring. The sub groaned, protesting as if passing through solid matter. External temperature gauges plummeted. Proximity sensors screamed warnings about hull stress and ambient energy levels exceeding safety thresholds. Inside the column, the world outside the viewport became thick, syrupy black. The water, if it was water, felt heavy, pressing against the acrylic, muffling even the sound of the sub's internal systems. A low, resonant hum vibrated through the deck plates. A sound felt more than heard, unsettlingly organic. The faint, cold light he'd glimpsed earlier was stronger here, emanating not just from the woman, but seemingly from the fluid itself, a pervasive, internal phosphorescence. He fought the controls, the thrusters laboring against the viscous drag of the alien liquid. The woman drifted nearer, her features resolving with startling clarity in the strange internal light. She was breathtakingly beautiful, but in a way that was fundamentally not human. Her skin possessed a pearlescent sheen, like the nacre lining of an ancient shell. Her features, though humanoid, held an alien symmetry, a perfection that spoke of evolution in an environment utterly divorced from the sunlit world. Her garments, or what seemed like garments, were strands of shimmering, solidified light woven with ribbons of shadow, clinging to her body like animate kelp. Her eyes remained closed, her expression one of profound peace, a serenity utterly incongruous with the hostile void she inhabited. Extending the manipulator arm required immense power, the motors whining in protest against the dense medium. Ethan guided the padded clamps with millimeter precision, his own breathing suspended. He had one chance at this. The clamps closed gently around her torso, sensors confirming contact, registering a core body temperature far below human norms but stable. He initiated retraction, pulling her slowly, carefully, towards the Nautilus's external sample airlock. The moment her body crossed the threshold, exiting the black water and entering the normal abyssal environment, the strange luminescence clinging to her faded, leaving her looking pale and vulnerable under the sub's emergency exterior lights. The Nautilus bucked again as it cleared the column's boundary, alarms gradually falling silent as external conditions returned to predictable extremes. Ethan didn't pause. He slammed the thrusters to full ascent, bypassing staged decompression protocols. Every nerve ending screamed urgency. The rapid journey upwards, towards the distant pool of light that marked the Odyssey's open hangar bay, was a tense exercise in system monitoring and anxious glances at the airlock status board. He re-established the main comm link just as the submersible breached the choppy surface waves. Ethan, report status. Immediately, Eva's voice was a controlled storm of fury, relief, and utter disbelief. Sub returning to hangar bay, Ethan replied, his voice strained. Minor hull corrosion. Superficial. Systems green. Objective secured. I have her on board. The cavernous hangar bay of the Odyssey was a sudden assault of bright lights and urgent activity. Medical teams in hazmat suits stood ready. Containment fields shimmered near the docking cradle. As the Nautilus settled into place, water cascading from its hull, Ethan remotely triggered the outer airlock seal, purged the sample chamber, and flooded it with breathable atmosphere, equalizing the pressure. He cracked the inner hatch. The woman lay curled on the small chamber floor, water pooling around her. Her strange, light-woven garments seemed to be dissolving, revealing skin that held a faint, residual shimmer. As the medical team surged forward with a stasis gurney, a collective intake of breath echoed through the bay. She was unlike anything they had ever imagined, not just alien, but aesthetically perfect in an unsettling, non-human way. As they carefully lifted her, her eyelids fluttered, Deep, silver eyes, luminous and ancient, opened and focused directly on Ethan, who stood paralyzed beside the hatch. Confusion flickered across her features, quickly followed by something else. Disappointment, regret. Then, her voice sounded, not through the air, but directly within the confines of his skull, clear and startlingly intimate, bypassing language itself. You should not have. The transition was incomplete. Her eyes slid closed again as the medical team, galvanized into action despite their shock, rushed her towards the ship's level 4 biocontainment infirmary. Ethan sagged against the cold hull of the Nautilus, the adrenaline dump leaving him weak-kneed. He had dived into a physical impossibility, disobeyed direct orders, and retrieved a being from another world, a being who spoke in his mind and seemed upset at being rescued. The mission parameters had just shifted from exploration to something infinitely more complex and dangerous. They had made first contact, and he had, apparently, ruined her sacred ritual. The Level 4 biocontainment infirmary aboard the Odyssey was less a place of healing and more a laboratory designed to study the unknown while preventing its escape. Gleaming surfaces, redundant air filtration systems, and arrays of non-invasive scanners monitored the woman who now lay quiescent on a reinforced biobed. Dr. Aris Thorne, the ship's chief medical officer, a man usually unflappable even during extreme surgical procedures, stared at the holographic diagnostic displays with an expression mingling fascination and profound unease. Her cellular respiration is negligible by our standards, Thorne murmured, pointing a laser guide at a complex, rotating model of her unique cellular structure. Oxygen uptake seems minimal, almost secondary. She appears to metabolize ambient pressure gradients and certain dissolved minerals directly. The trace elements from her skin samples, they don't match anything on the extended periodic table proposed by Xenon Labs. Theoretically, she shouldn't be conscious, let alone alive, in one atmosphere. He glanced at Ethan, who stood rigidly beside the containment field generator. Her core temperature is hovering around 4 degrees Celsius. Heartbeat, if you can call it that, is a low-frequency resonance, more like a biological tuning fork than a pump. It's beautiful, in a terrifyingly alien way. Ethan watched the steady, silver glow pulsing faintly beneath her closed eyelids. The telepathic voice echoed, resonant with disappointment. Incomplete. Has she shown any change? Any response? Ethan asked, keeping his voice low. Thorne shook his head. Nothing since her initial communication with you. It's less like unconsciousness and more like a deliberate state of metabolic suspension, as if she's conserving energy, or perhaps processing, as if summoned by his words. Her eyes snapped open. The silver irises seemed to swirl, focusing instantly on Ethan with unnerving intensity. She sat up, the diagnostic pads detaching themselves with soft clicks, as if obeying an unspoken command. The containment field flickered slightly as her intrinsic bioelectric field interacted with it. My designation is Lysara. The voice filled their minds again, calmer this time, imbued with an innate regality. I offer gratitude for your intervention, surface dweller. Dr. Ethan Rourke. Though your actions stemmed from perceived necessity, they have altered the intended path. The intended path, Ethan repeated, feeling clumsy and intrusive. We perceived you were in danger. That black water. The Nautilus's sensors registered extreme corrosivity. Lysara inclined her head gracefully. The nasos thalassa. In your tongue. Perhaps the dark cradle or sea worm. It is sacred. Its properties are transformative, not destructive, to those prepared. My immersion was the culmination of the Athlon ritus, a passage required of my lineage. Her silver eyes seemed to look through Ethan, remembering. It tests spirit, resilience, connection to the deep flows. The final stage involves dissolution, a surrender of the individual self to the oceanic consciousness. Before reintegration, a necessary shedding. You mean you were intentionally dissolving? Thorne asked, incredulous. A metaphor, or perhaps, Lysara conceded. A transition state. Stillness is required. Absolute surrender. Your retrieval, while preserving this physical form, interrupted the flow. The connection was severed prematurely. We apologize, Ethan said sincerely. Our actions were based on incomplete understanding. We only sought to help. Your intent was clear, Lysara acknowledged, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Benevolent intent, however, does not negate consequence. My people, they are bound by tradition and ancient laws. This disruption will be noted. There is also a prophecy. She paused, as if deciding how much to reveal. An old text, seldom consulted now. It speaks of a time when the boundary is breached, when a child of the sunlit lands survives the Nisos Thalassa. It foretells upheaval, change. Vael will seize upon this. Before Ethan could ask who Vael was, urgent, non-emergency alert chimes sounded through the infirmary. Captain Rostova's voice, clipped and strained, came over the speaker. Ethan. Thorne. Bridge immediately. Multiple subsurface contacts detected. Closing fast. High energy signatures. Non-ballistic trajectories. They're ignoring all standard hails and warnings. Configuration doesn't match any known surface nation's technology. Ethan looked at Lysara. Her regal calm remained, but her eyes held a new, somber light. My retrieval escort, she transmitted, a subtle warning undertone. Led by Commander Vail, he adheres strictly to protocol. He will view this entire situation dimly. The bridge of the Odyssey hummed with suppressed tension. Every crew member was locked onto their station, faces illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. The main view screen showed the deep, featureless blue outside suddenly populated by sleek, impossibly fast shapes. They were vessels, clearly artificial, yet they moved with the predatory fluidity of sharks, leaving behind only shimmering distortions in the water, utterly silent to sonar. Their hulls seemed crafted from polished obsidian, absorbing radar signals, emitting only complex, unreadable energy patterns. They've formed a perimeter, Eva reported, her voice tight, holding at 5 kilometers. No hostile actions detected, but their energy signatures. They could disable us instantly if they chose. They're launching smaller craft, several smaller, equally sleek vessels detached from the dark motherships, arrowing towards the Odyssey with breathtaking speed and precision. They looked less like machines and more like sculpted pieces of the deep sea given menacing life. Receiving focused transmission, the comms officer announced, adjusting his headset. Narrow beam, directed specifically at us. Non-standard encoding. Translator matrix attempting decryption. Stand by. A burst of static. Then a voice emerged. Cold. Synthesized. Layered with complex clicks and resonant undertones that spoke of immense pressure and fluid dynamics. Surface vessel designated Odyssey. You are in violation of Atlantean sovereignty. You have trespassed within the sacred boundaries of the Nisos Thalassa. You have interfered with a dynastic right of the royal house. You currently hold Princess Lysara against her will. Surrender her immediately and submit your vessel for inspection, or face terminal incapacitation. Atlantica, the mythical name, spoken with such chilling authority, hung heavy in the air. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. Beside him, Lysara projected an aura of calm authority, though Ethan sensed the tight control beneath it. Commander Vielle, she sent privately, exclusively to Ethan's mind. Chief of the Royal Aegis Guard, fiercely loyal to my father, King Thalor, but rigid. He sees the surface world only as a source of potential contamination and threat. He is ambitious, and this incident will serve his narrative. This is Captain Eva Rostova of the Terran research vessel Odyssey, Eva responded, her voice remarkably steady. We acknowledge your transmission. Princess Lysara is safe and unharmed. She is receiving voluntary medical assessment following our discovery of her in what appeared to be a hazardous environment. Our actions were solely intended to render aid. We assert no hostile intent. Vale's synthesized voice dripped with contempt. Your ignorance is irrelevant. Your vessel's presence constitutes an act of aggression. Your aid was sacrilege. Prepare for boarding procedures. Any resistance will be neutralized with prejudice. Ethan saw the grim reality settle in. Eva's eyes, they were utterly outclassed. Any attempt at resistance would be suicidal theater. Lysara stepped forward slightly, her gaze fixed on the view screen as if piercing the hull in kilometers of water to address Vale directly. Commander Vale, her mental voice broadcast, likely carried on the same focus beam the Atlanteans used. This is Princess Lysara. I confirm the surface captain's statement. Their actions, though disruptive, were born of misunderstanding, not malice. I am unharmed. Order your forces to stand down. A significant pause followed. Then Vale's voice, deferential but inflexible. Princess, your safety is our directive. We shall retrieve you forthwith. The fate of these intruders and their vessel will be adjudicated by the Royal Council upon our return to Atlantica Prime. Small, dart-like craft latched onto the Odyssey's hull with magnetic clamps that hissed softly. Ignoring standard docking protocols, sections of the reinforced hull shimmered, then dissolved momentarily as Atlantean technology bypassed physical barriers, only to reform seamlessly once the breach was made. Figures began to enter the designated reception corridor near the bridge. They were tall, clad in fluid, dark armor that seemed to ripple and shift like water currents, reflecting the ambient light in unsettling ways. Their helmets were smooth, featureless, glowing with soft, internal bioluminescent patterns. They moved with unnerving silence and discipline, carrying complex devices that pulsed rhythmically with contained energy. Soldiers, elite, efficient, and utterly intimidating. Commander Vale entered last. He was taller, broader than his guards, his armor subtly marked with glowing blue sigils of rank and lineage. He retracted his helmet, revealing a face that was harshly handsome, aristocratic, with cheekbones like carved ice and eyes the pale, frigid blue of a deep sea glacier. He completely ignored the human crew, his entire focus locking onto Lysara. He executed a stiff, formal bow. Princess, forgive this necessary intrusion. His Majesty, King Thalor, awaits your swift and safe return. Lysara inclined her head, maintaining her regal composure. I shall accompany you, Commander. However, I reiterate, these surface dwellers acted out of concern, misplaced though it was. Ensure they are treated with fairness, pending the Council's judgment. Vale's glacial eyes flickered towards Ethan for the briefest moment, a look of cold dismissal and profound suspicion. Their disposition is beyond my authority, Princess. They violated sacred law. That carries consequences. He gestured curtly, and two guards moved smoothly to flank Lysara. As she turned, her gaze met Ethan's one final time. In that infinitesimal pause, unseen by the focused Vielle or the impassive guards, Her hand brushed his as she passed. Something small, cool, and smooth was pressed into his palm. "Keep this safe," her thought whispered urgently, secretly, into his mind. "Bio-coded to your unique energy signature, a communication conduit. Should dire need arise." Then she was swept away, escorted by the silent, formidable guards down the corridor, leaving the bridge crew of the Odyssey engulfed in a stunned, heavy silence. The immediate crisis was over, but the chilling reality of their encounter, the existence of a powerful, hidden civilization, and the palpable menace of Commander Vael, promised far greater complications ahead. Ethan closed his hand around the object Lysara had given him. It felt strangely alive, pulsing with a faint, latent warmth against his skin. The weeks following the encounter crawled by. The Odyssey remained stationed over the mid-Atlantic ridge, effectively quarantined by Surface Command pending exhaustive analysis and diplomatic strategy formulation. Strategy for dealing with a civilization whose existence defied centuries of scientific understanding. Teams of scientists, linguists, and political analysts beamed up from secure naval carriers worked around the clock, dissecting the terabytes of data recorded during the brief, intense contact. They analyzed the composition of the Nasos thalassa from residual traces on the Nautilus hull, debated the physics of the Atlantean propulsion systems, attempted to decipher the complex harmonics in Vael's synthesized voice, and generated endless simulations regarding Atlantean societal structure and technological capabilities. Ethan found himself adrift in this sea of analysis. He provided his account numerous times, describing the black water, the rescue, Lysara's telepathic communication, Vael's chilling demeanor. Yet, he felt increasingly isolated. He was the point of contact, the man who had touched the impossible, but now he was just another data point for the analysts. He spent his off hours in his small cabin, the smooth, dark object Lysara had given him resting heavy in his palm. It remained stubbornly inert to all shipboard scanners, registering as nothing more than an unusually dense piece of polished obsidian. Yet, Ethan felt something within it, a dormant potential, a silent hum just below the threshold of perception. He replayed Lysara's parting mental message endlessly, a communication conduit. Should dire need arise? What dire need? Was she in danger? Had his interference brought repercussions upon her? Vael's cold, dismissive gaze haunted him. The commander hadn't just seemed suspicious, he'd seemed predatory, as if Ethan's accidental intrusion had given him an opportunity he'd been waiting for. One cycle. During the ship's designated night period, Ethan sat staring at the communicator, turning it over and over in his hand, focusing his thoughts, his concern, towards Lysara, towards the unfathomable depths where she had been taken. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the object began to warm. A faint, intricate network of sapphire blue lines pulsed to life beneath its surface, shifting and swirling like captured constellations. Holding his breath, Ethan intensified his focus, pouring his anxiety and questions into the silent object. The patterns accelerated, coalesced, then flowed outwards, projecting a three-dimensional holographic image into the dim cabin air. It was Lysara. Her form shimmered translucent, the background indistinct but suggesting flowing, organic architecture bathed in soft internal light. Her expression was stark urgent, stripped of regal composure. Her voice filled his mind, tight with alarm. "Ethan, thank the deep currents. It works. Listen closely. There is no time." Ethan shot to his feet, heart pounding. "Lysara, are you safe? What's happened?" "I've been worried. Physically, I am unharmed," she transmitted rapidly, her mental tone strained. But Vael, he twists events to his purpose. He uses the Nasos Thalassa incident, my abduction and contamination by surface contact, as proof that your world poses an existential threat. He speaks of ancient warnings, of surface dweller tendencies towards destruction and expansion. He has swayed a powerful faction on the council, those who have always feared contact. Her image flickered, disturbed by some interference. He is not merely posturing, Ethan. He has invoked emergency protocols, citing imminent danger. He has gained restricted access to the primary georesonance matrix control nexus at the Theron Deep Archaeological Site. Georesonance matrix, Ethan queried, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. A planetary regulatory system, Lysara explained grimly, ancient, immensely powerful, designed to stabilize tectonic plates, manage deep-sea currents, but it can be weaponized. Vael intends to overload specific nodes along major fault lines beneath your Atlantic Ocean. He plans to trigger a cascading series of seismic events, earthquakes, tsunamis, devastating your coastal populations. He calls it unnecessary sterilization, a preemptive strike to cripple the surface world before it discovers and inevitably attacks Atlantica. The scale of the planned atrocity was staggering. Genocide on a planetary scale, orchestrated from the abyssal depths. But your father, the king, the council, surely they wouldn't permit such madness. My father, King Thalor, is powerful, but bound by intricate laws and council balance, Lysara replied, frustration coloring her tone. Vael has manipulated protocols, presented falsified sensor readings suggesting surface aggression. The debate, the verification process, it will take too long. Vael plans to initiate the sequence within the next high-energy cycle confluence. He truly believes this is the only path to ensure our survival. He speaks darkly, of cleansing fire being necessary to prevent a deeper, encroaching shadow. I don't fully understand his rhetoric, but his conviction is absolute. What can I possibly do? Lysara, I'm trapped on this ship. Vael anticipates threats from the surface navies, from orbital platforms, Lysara said, her image solidifying slightly. He does not expect a threat from a single scientist in a submersible he believes is quarantined. He discounts you. That is our only advantage. You survived the Nasos Thalassa, the old prophecy. Vael dismisses it, but perhaps its time is now. A bridge between. She cut herself off. The communicator I gave you is shielded from our internal detection nets. It now holds detailed schematics of the Theron Deep facility, highlighting auxiliary access routes, maintenance conduits bypassed by Vael's security lockdown. The coordinates. A stream of complex navigational data flowed into Ethan's mind, pinpointing a location within one of the deepest, most hazardous trench systems on the planet. You must reach the Georesonance Control Center, find the primary initiation node, disable it before Vael triggers the cascade. The schematics show vulnerabilities. Her image flickered violently now, dissolving at the edges. Security sweeps, intensifying. Vael suspects something. I cannot maintain the link much longer. Ethan, you are the only hope. For my world and for yours. Prevent this. Madness. The hologram collapsed. The communicator returning to its inert, dark state. Though it now felt heavy with purpose in Ethan's hand, he stood frozen in the silent cabin, the enormity of the revelation crashing down on him. Global catastrophe orchestrated by a fanatical Atlantean commander, a desperate warning from a hidden princess, and him, a marine biologist, armed with alien schematics and a research submersible as the only potential countermeasure. Reporting this through official channels was impossible. The sheer unbelievability of it, coupled with the required security clearances, bureaucratic inertia, and diplomatic protocols, would ensure Vial succeeded long before any surface vessel could be authorized to intervene. He had to act alone, immediately. He needed the Nautilus. He needed Captain Rostova's help. He found Eva on the darkened bridge, overseeing the night watch, her silhouette framed against the star-dusted infinity outside the main viewports. He didn't preamble. He laid it all out, Lysara's desperate message, Vale's genocidal plan, the geo-resonance matrix, the communicator, the schematics, the coordinates, the prophecy fragments, Vale's cryptic mention of a deeper shadow. He expected disbelief, caution, perhaps even orders confining him under guard as delusional. Instead, Eva listened with unnerving stillness, her sharp eyes fixed on his, occasionally glancing at the dark communicator he placed on the console between them. When he finished, the only sound was the soft hum of the bridge systems. Eva stared out at the black ocean for a long minute, her fingers drumming softly on the console edge. Geo-resonance matrix, she murmured, accessing secure ship logs with swift commands. Matches, intermittent, high-energy subspace resonances we've been unable to classify, originating from the Theron Deep region. Tectonic weaponization, theoretically feasible with sufficiently advanced technology. Frighteningly plausible. She turned, her face grim in the low light. No government agency will sanction a preemptive strike into uncharted, potentially hostile territory based on a telepathic SOS and a piece of alien jewelry. Ethan. They'll classify you as compromised, suffering from deep immersion psychosis. I know, Ethan said quietly. That's why I need the Nautilus. Now. Without official logs, Eva held his gaze, searching his face. He saw the conflict, the ingrained duty to command versus the instinct of an explorer who had also glimpsed the impossible. Vale thinks he has us neutralized, she said finally, a spark of defiance in her eyes. He thinks surface dwellers are predictable, lumbering. He won't anticipate a single, targeted insertion from the one person who slipped through his fingers once already. She took a deep breath, her decision made. All right, getting the Nautilus prepped and launched silently is complex, requires multiple system overrides, falsified maintenance logs, a temporary communications blackout blamed on solar flares. It's borderline treason. She offered a wry smile, but compared to letting Vale trigger global tsunamis, seems reasonable. Her expression hardened. I can give you a 6-hour window before I have to officially report the sub missing, likely Easterland by its compromised pilot. After that, you're completely on your own. No support, no rescue. Entering technologically superior, hostile territory. If they catch you, I understand, Ethan affirmed, relief and terror warring within him. Thank you, Eva. Don't thank me, she said sharply. Survive. Succeed. I'm transmitting modified stealth protocols and sensor-baffling specs to your personal datapad. Engineering will implement them under diagnostic maintenance. Go. Get ready. And Ethan, he paused at the bridge exit. Try not to start an interspecies war if you can help it. The second descent was different. Stripped of the Odyssey's comforting umbilical, the Nautilus felt terrifyingly alone as it plunged into the crushing blackness, running silent, external lights extinguished. Ethan relied solely on passive sonar, gravitational sensors, and the glowing blue schematics projected by Lysara's communicator onto his navigation display. The coordinates led him away from the familiar ridge towards the Theron Deep, a colossal trench system that scarred the abyssal plain like a wound inflicted by a titan. pushing the submersible far beyond its designated crush depth. The hull groaned rhythmically, a constant reminder of the immense pressures trying to annihilate the tiny bubble of air keeping him alive. The schematics guided him towards a region marked by intense geothermal activity and unstable magnetics, the archaeological site. As he neared the target zone, the communicator highlighted faint, shifting energy signatures, cloaking fields masking vast, submerged structures built into the trench walls, an Atlantean city or major outpost, utterly invisible to surface detection. The primary access Vale would use was undoubtedly heavily guarded. Lysara's data directed him towards an auxiliary conduit system several kilometers distant, concealed within a dense, chaotic forest of hydrothermal vents. Navigating the vent field was like flying blind through an underwater minefield. Towers of black smokers erupted without warning, spewing plumes of superheated, toxic water saturated with minerals. Visibility dropped to zero in the swirling clouds of particulate. The Nautilus bucked and shuddered as thermal gradients stressed the hull, alarms flashing constantly. Ethan wrestled the controls, relying on the communicator's low-frequency scans and pure instinct, weaving the submersible through the scalding maze. He found it, exactly where Lysara's schematics indicated. Hidden behind a curtain of shimmering heat haze from a cluster of white smokers, a perfectly circular aperture in the trench wall, sealed by an energy field that rippled like disturbed water. The communicator pulsed, feeding a complex modulation frequency sequence to the Nautilus's modified forward emitter. Ethan transmitted the code. The energy field flickered, warped, then dissolved, revealing a smooth-bored tunnel angling steeply downwards into the rock. He eased the submersible inside, the shield reforming silently behind him, sealing him within the Atlantean domain. The tunnel was vast, clearly designed for significant energy flow, lit by intermittent strips of cool, blue-green bioluminescent algae cultured onto the walls. It felt ancient, resonant with power. According to Lysara, it was a decommissioned geothermal transfer conduit, hopefully, truly abandoned. Deeper and deeper he plunged, the silence absolute save for the whisper of the life support and the occasional creak of the hull adjusting to the changing pressure. The communicator periodically highlighted junctions and feeder tunnels, guiding him through the labyrinthine network towards the core of the facility. The risk of detection was now critical. Ethan powered down everything but essential navigation and life support, running on battery reserves, activating the external sensor baffling Eva's team had installed. He drifted through colossal underwater caverns and corridors, marveling at the alien architecture, structures that seemed grown rather than built, flowing organic lines blending seamlessly with advanced technology, all bathed in the soft, pervasive glow of cultivated bioluminescence. It was hauntingly beautiful, but he couldn't afford distraction. The communicator pulsed a sharp warning. Proximity alert. Patrols. He spotted a darkened side cavern, barely an alcove in the massive tunnel wall, and steered the Nautilus inside, killing even the internal console lights. Praying the sensor baffling held. Two Atlantean guards in the now familiar rippling armor swept past the alcove opening, their movements impossibly fluid and silent in the water. They carried crackling energy polearms, their helmeted heads constantly scanning. They passed without detecting him. Ethan waited, heart pounding, until their energy signatures faded down the corridor before emerging cautiously. The Georesonance Control Center defied description. It was a cavern of staggering proportions, dominated by a central crystalline structure easily 50 stories high. The matrix itself, facets of milky, translucent crystal pulsed with contained energy, arcs of controlled lightning dancing across its surface, illuminating the vast chamber in rhythmic waves of sapphire and emerald light. The air, or rather the water, thrummed with unimaginable power. At a complex console constructed from solidified light and flowing water currents positioned before the matrix, stood Commander Vale. He was flanked by several technicians in simpler attire, their hands moving rapidly over the shimmering controls. Lysara's warning screamed in Ethan's mind: initiate the sequence within the next high-energy cycle confluence. Looking at the furious energy building within the matrix, Ethan knew that confluence was imminent. He had minutes, perhaps seconds. He scanned the chamber, referencing the schematics on the communicator. The primary initiation node was clearly visible, a focused convergence point of energy near the top of the matrix, currently pulsing with intense, angry red light. That had to be neutralized. But how? A direct assault was suicide. He needed chaos, a diversion. Using the Nautilus's external acoustic emitter, he projected a burst of broad-spectrum interference, targeted noise designed to overload the technician's sensitive console interfaces. Console sparked, holographic displays dissolved into static, alarms blared dissonantly. The technicians staggered back, shielding their eyes, shouting confused warnings in their resonant, clicking language. Vale spun around, his glacial eyes instantly scanning the upper reaches of the cavern, searching for the source. Report. Status. Contain the interference. It was the opening Ethan needed. He launched a small, specialized deep scan probe, modified by Eva's team to carry a payload, a targeted EMP charge. While Vale and the guards were focused on the acoustic assault, Ethan remotely piloted the tiny probe, sending it streaking silently through the water towards the pulsing red initiation node high on the matrix. Intruder, one of the technicians shouted, finally spotting the small, dark shape against the glowing crystal. Vale reacted instantly. Without even looking, he raised his wrist device and fired a pinpoint beam of pure energy. The probe vaporized into momentary plasma, less than a meter from its target. Seal exits. Full diagnostic sweep, Vale roared, his gaze sweeping the chamber with renewed intensity. But the probe, brief as its flight was, had drawn Vale's attention upwards. In that split second, Ethan acted, driving the Nautilus upwards from the shadowy floor directly beneath the control platform Vale stood upon. He surged towards the console itself. Vale whirled, his eyes widening in stunned disbelief as the dark, unexpected shape of the submersible ascended from below. The surface dweller. Here! Impossible! He fired his wrist weapon again, the beam scoring a molten channel across the Nautilus's viewport, but failing to penetrate the reinforced acrylic. Ethan ignored the impact, the screech of tortured metal. His target wasn't the initiator node anymore. It was the console itself. He extended the heavy manipulator arm, bypassing the sparking, damaged controls, and clamped down hard on the primary energy conduit feeding the entire platform from the matrix core. With a groan of protesting hydraulics and shearing exotic alloys, he ripped the conduit free. A shower of incandescent sparks erupted. The main console went dark. The holographic displays vanished. The thunderous hum of the georesonance matrix faltered. The furious energy arcs sputtering. The pulsing red light of the initiation node fading to a dull, intermittent flicker. The immediate, catastrophic sequence was aborted. But it wasn't over. Vale landed lightly atop the Nautilus, hammering on the viewport with the metallic butt of his wrist weapon, his face a mask of incandescent rage. Surface filth! Meddler! You understand nothing. You have doomed us all. Ethan met the commander's furious gaze. He had no weapons, only the submersible, He activated emergency ballast purges, flooding the area around the sub with a dense cloud of opaque vapor and turbulent water, hoping to momentarily blind Vale. Simultaneously, he slammed the thrusters into reverse, trying to back away from the platform and make for the tunnel entrance. Vale, however, anticipated the move. He leaped clear of the cloud, landing back on the now powerless platform just as massive. Shimmering containment fields slammed into place, sealing every exit from the control chamber. Ethan was trapped. Vale stalked towards a secondary panel near the base of the matrix, one still glowing faintly with independent auxiliary power. He placed his palm upon it. You stopped the primary sequence. Fool. A blunt instrument for a blunt mind. But there are fail-safes, contingencies your primitive brain cannot conceive. A different hum began to build, deeper, more discordant, emanating from the core of the giant crystal structure. Not the controlled power build-up from before, but something ragged, unstable. Ethan! He's bypassing the regulators. Lysara's voice shrieked in his mind, laced with panic. He's trying to force a raw overload of the core containment. It won't trigger the focused seismic cascade, but the uncontrolled implosion. It will vaporize this entire sector, destabilize the Theron deep fault system. Get out now. But the exits remain sealed, shimmering impassibly. Vale laughed, a harsh, grating sound echoing in the vast chamber. There is no escape. You sought to interfere. Then you will share our fate. A fitting end for your blasphemy. Perhaps this will finally silence the deep crawlers your surface filth awakens. Deep crawlers. Awakens. Vale's cryptic words about a deeper shadow suddenly clicked. His fanaticism wasn't just about the surface. It was about something else, something he believed the surface world provoked. Just as Vale raised his hand to deliver the final input for the overload, the massive main entrance doors hissed open, overriding Vale's lockdown command. Standing framed in the archway, bathed in the soft light from the corridor beyond, was Lysara. Beside her, radiating an aura of ancient power and profound weariness, stood an older Atlantean male. His features mirrored Lysara's refined symmetry, but his silver eyes held the accumulated wisdom and sorrow of millennia. He wore simple, flowing robes of deep indigo. Yet his presence commanded the chamber more absolutely than Vale in his full battle armor. King Thalor, Commander Vale. Thalor's voice was quiet, almost conversational. Yet it cut through the rising whine of the overloading matrix, silencing it through sheer force of will. Cease this, now. Explain the meaning of this spectacle. Vale froze, his hand hovering over the auxiliary panel, his expression a mixture of fury, shock, and disbelief. Your Majesty, Princess, this primitive, he spat the word, gesturing wildly at the Nautilus, infiltrated our most sacred control nexus. He deliberately sabotaged the geo-resonance matrix, our only defense against the imminent surface aggression he represents. The only aggression here, Commander. Lysara stepped forward, her voice clear and strong, ringing with righteous anger, is your own paranoid delusion. You fabricated threats, manipulated protocols, and intended to unleash genocide upon an entire world based on twisted interpretations and fear. This surface dweller, she indicated Ethan with a gesture of respect, risked his existence, guided by my warning, to prevent your act of utter madness. King Thalor's gaze moved slowly, deliberately, from the sputtering matrix core to the ripped-out console conduit, to the trapped submersible, to the defiant Vile, and finally rested on his daughter's face. His ancient eyes, which seemed to have witnessed the birth and death of oceans, absorb the scene, process the implications in an instant. You invoke the emergency mandate. You bypass the council. You prepared to commit an act of unprecedented warfare. Veil. Based on what verifiable evidence? Evidence. Viel scoffed, emboldened by desperation. The evidence is their very existence, their relentless expansion, their pollution poisoning the upper waters, their sonic intrusions awakening horrors in the deep we can barely contain. The prophecies warned us. Their presence in the Nessos Thalassa was the final sign. I acted to protect Atlantica, to prevent the coming shadow they herald. The prophecies also speak of balance, the lore countered, his voice dropping to a dangerously quiet register, of bridges built across divides, of understanding born from the unexpected. You chose to heed only the verses that fed your fear, your ambition. The deep crawlers you fear are ancient tectonic entities disturbed by our own geothermal drilling, not the surface dwellers. Your evidence was self-serving delusion. He turned to the elite royal guards who had entered silently behind him, their armor subtly different, bearing the crest of the king's personal aegis. Commander Viel, you are hereby stripped of rank and command. You are placed under arrest for high treason, attempted genocide, and gross dereliction of duty. Escort him to the holding caverns. He will face the full judgment of the council. Vale's personal guards looked uncertainly between their commander and their king. But Thalor's authority was absolute, ancient, unquestionable. They lowered their energy polyarms, stepping back as the king's Aegis guard moved forward. Viel stared, aghast, as they efficiently disarmed him and clamped stasis manacles on his wrists. You are fools, Viel snarled as they led him away, struggling impotently. All of you, blind. When the darkness rises from below, you will remember my warning. King Thalor watched him go, his expression unreadable, before turning his attention to the Nautilus. With a gesture, he deactivated the containment field sealing the chamber. Ethan hesitated for only a moment, then cycled the hatch. He stepped out of the submersible onto the Atlantean platform, the ambient pressure noticeable, but the atmosphere breathable, heavy with moisture and unfamiliar trace scents. He stood before the king of Atlantica, an intruder who had violated their most sacred spaces, yet also the one who had, perhaps, saved them from internal catastrophe. Thalor studied him intently, his silver eyes seeming to pierce Ethan's very soul. Dr. Ethan Rourke, the king stated, his voice resonating with quiet power. Twice you have breached our borders. Twice you have interfered in matters of Atlantean sovereignty, once in the Nessos Thalassa, once here, at the heart of our world's balance. I acted only to preserve life, your majesty. Ethan replied steadily, meeting the king's gaze. First Lysara's, as I perceived it. Then, the lives of millions on the surface, and perhaps the stability of your own systems. Threatened by Commander Vale's actions, Vale's fear, though warped into fanaticism, touches upon a truth. Thalor conceded, his gaze distant. Our isolation has been our shield for millennia. Contact introduces chaos, the unknown. Your surface world's history is turbulent, expansionist, often destructive towards that which it does not understand. That is one aspect of humanity, Ethan acknowledged carefully. But there is another, curiosity, compassion, the drive to learn, to connect. My presence here, my choices, were driven by that aspect. Lysara moved to stand beside her father, adding her voice, both mental and audible. Father, he speaks the truth, his courage, his willingness to risk everything based on my warning, prevented Vale from staining Atlantica's honor with an unforgivable atrocity. He has shown us that the surface holds more than just the potential for conflict. He represents possibility. Thalor looked from his daughter to Ethan, then back towards the now stabilizing matrix, where his technicians worked diligently. A long silence stretched, filled only with the soft hum of restored power. The prophecy veil twisted. Thalor mused, almost to himself. A surface dweller, bridging the abyss, surviving the cradle. Perhaps its meaning was not warning, but opportunity. He seemed to reach a decision, his regal bearing settling firmly. Vale's treason has forced our hand. Absolute isolation is no longer viable, nor perhaps desirable. We cannot erase the knowledge you possess, nor can we ignore the potential for future misunderstanding. Future veils. He looked directly at Ethan. Your actions, Dr. Rourke, while illegal under our law, have undeniably served the cause of peace, both for your world and mine. Atlantica acknowledges a debt. Therefore, I propose a new path, not blind trust, not fearful isolation, but controlled, cautious engagement, a joint scientific outpost, established here, within the Theron Deep, at the boundary of our civilizations, staffed by the best minds of both our worlds, a place to study, to learn, to build understanding, step by careful step. Ethan was speechless. From the precipice of interspecies war and genocide to a proposal for unprecedented cooperation. Your Majesty, that is, visionary. Survival often requires vision. Thalor replied simply. He turned to his daughter, Princess Lysara. Your unique experience and perspective make you the ideal choice to serve as Atlantica's chief liaison for this historic undertaking. Lysara's silver eyes shone with hope and determination. It would be my greatest honor, Father. Thalor nodded, satisfied, then focused again on Ethan. As for you, Dr. Rourke, your submersible requires extensive repairs. Your return journey would be perilous, and this new outpost requires surface expertise, someone who understands both the potential and the fragility of this connection. Would you consider remaining as the first surface ambassador and lead scientist for the Theron Deep Joint Research Initiative? Ethan looked at Lysara, saw the hopeful anticipation in her eyes, mirroring the sudden, fierce surge of purpose within his own chest. He thought of the endless reports, the political maneuvering, the skepticism he would face back home. Then he thought of the chance before him, to be part of something truly transformative, to explore the ultimate frontier, not as an intruder, but as a partner, to build that bridge the prophecy spoke of, to work alongside Lysara. Yes, Your Majesty, Ethan said. The word feeling inadequate for the magnitude of the moment. I would be honored to accept. The establishment of the Theron Deep Joint Research Initiative was a monumental undertaking, a testament to cautious optimism forged in the crucible of near catastrophe. King Thalor, navigating the complex currents of Atlantean politics with ancient wisdom, used Vale's extremism and the surface dwellers' unexpected intervention as leverage to advocate for this new era of controlled contact, silencing the isolationist factions for the time being. Vale, after a formal trial before the Atlantean High Council, where his paranoid plans and unauthorized actions were laid bare, was sentenced to indefinite stasis in a remote penitentiary cavern. Justice served. But his dark warnings about deep crawlers remained an unsettling undercurrent. Captain Rostova, back on the Odyssey, transmitted a carefully constructed report to Surface Command, detailing the confirmed existence of a highly advanced, non-hostile underwater civilization, their skew of Dr. Rourke, and the establishment of preliminary diplomatic and scientific relations via the joint outpost. strategically omitting the full scale of Vale's genocidal plot to prevent widespread panic, but securing tentative governmental support for the unprecedented project. Life for Ethan transformed. The Theron Deep Outpost became his world, a stunning fusion of human practicality and Atlantean bioluminescent artistry. Nestled deep within the trench wall, working alongside Atlantean scientists was a constant source of wonder and intellectual exhilaration. Their understanding of deep-sea ecosystems, bioenergetics, fluid dynamics, and resonant harmonics operated on principles that often seemed closer to magic than human science. Yet, collaboration flourished. Human analytical tools complemented Atlantean intuitive knowledge. Joint teams began mapping the intricate web of life in the trench, studying the strange properties of the Nasos thalassa from a safe distance, and monitoring the very tectonic plates Vael had sought to weaponize. The outpost wasn't just a laboratory, it was a symbol, a fragile beacon of hope shining in the abyssal dark, proving that two vastly different species could find common ground. Ethan's bond with Lysara became the quiet bedrock of this new reality. She was his guide, his interpreter not just of language but of culture, sharing the subtleties of Atlantean art, their deep spiritual connection to the ocean's currents, their millennia-long history recorded in crystalline memory matrices. Together, they explored the breathtaking Atlantean city, Atlantica Prime, a metropolis sculpted from living coral, illuminated by cultivated light forms, where elegant Atlanteans moved through water-filled plazas alongside tamed, glowing deep-sea creatures in a display of perfect ecological harmony. Ethan, in turn, became Lysara's window to the surface world. He described bustling cities, sprawling continents, the cacophony of human cultures, the achievements and follies of a species tied to land and air. He shared music, literature, history, trying to convey the complex, contradictory nature of humanity. Their conversations often stretched for hours, moving from scientific debate to philosophical inquiry, from shared laughter over cultural misunderstandings to quiet contemplation of the vast differences and surprising similarities between their peoples. They found themselves seeking each other's company, developing a rapport that transcended their official roles. It was in the shared awe while observing a bloom of previously unknown abyssal jellyfish, the comfortable silence watching energy patterns shift across the contained matrix core. The spark of understanding when one explained a difficult concept to the other. It wasn't a sudden passion, but a deep, slow-growing current of mutual respect, intellectual fascination, and undeniable affection. They were pioneers, ambassadors, scientists, but increasingly, they were simply Ethan and Lysara, two souls from different worlds finding an anchor point in each other. One cycle, standing on an observation deck overlooking the vibrant, active outpost where human engineers in bulky pressure suits worked alongside graceful Atlantean biotechnicians. Lysara turned to Ethan, her silver eyes serious. Vale's fear about things awakened in the deep. It was not entirely baseless. Ethan, there are ancient forces, dormant energies within the planet's core, that even our deepest understanding barely touches. Our ancestors contained them, established the matrix to maintain balance. Vale believed surface activity was disturbing that balance. He was wrong in his methods, his conclusions fueled by paranoia. But the potential for instability is real. Ethan met her gaze, understanding the gravity of her words, which makes this outpost, this collaboration, even more important. We need to understand those forces together. Ignorance, isolation. That's what empowers fear. That's what creates monsters like Vael. Lysara nodded slowly. a faint smile touching her lips. You have learned much, surface dweller. I have, Ethan agreed, his smile mirroring hers. And I have much more to learn. He looked out at the mingled lights of human and Atlantean technology, a symbol of the future they were building together, piece by painstaking piece. The path ahead remained long, paved with challenges and the ever-present shadows of the unknown. But here, in the deepest heart of the planet, a connection had been forged. It was a connection born of crisis, nurtured by curiosity, and strengthened by the growing bond between a man who had dared to enter the deep and the woman who was its daughter. Their intertwined fates, once a matter of prophecy and chance, now felt like the beginning of a new chapter, not just for their peoples, but for themselves. A quiet promise of hope, echoing in the profound, eternal silence of the abyss. Canvas,